In 2019, a North Carolina mother was charged with felony child abuse for spanking her 7-year-old son in a Walmart parking lot. Not beating, not bruising, a single swat with an open hand. The same correction her own mother delivered in 1972 without a second thought. Number 8 will surprise you because it involves something every American grandmother once kept in a kitchen drawer. In several states today, using it on your own child can end with a custody hearing. Children did not change. The law changed around them. Hit subscribe. This list will change everything you thought you knew. Number 20, standing in the corner. Walk into any American elementary classroom in 1965 and you would have seen the same scene. A child facing the wall, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for a full class period. No paddle, no raised voice, no call home. The teacher pointed and the child went. The lesson was simple. You cause a disruption, you remove yourself from the group until you are ready to rejoin. Today, the practice is restricted in school district policies across at least 19 states. In 2017, a Georgia teacher was suspended for using a corner during recess. Officials called it isolation and possible emotional harm. Mental health consultants were brought in. The teacher resigned within a year. The child she disciplined is now in middle school, by all accounts thriving. The corner did not break him. The investigation broke her career. Her teaching license is still valid. No district has called her since. The corner that taught a generation of Americans to cool down is now treated like a holding cell, waiting for a federal lawsuit. Number 19, writing lines. A teacher hands you a blank notebook and a sentence. I will not talk during arithmetic 50 times, 100 times, sometimes 500. You sit at your desk after the bell rings and write until your hand cramps. No teacher's note, no parent meeting, no due process, just paper and consequence. Generations of Americans learned cursive penmanship this way. The practice was standard in every classroom from the 1920s through the late 1980s. Then writing lines disappeared. School psychologists labeled it humiliation by repetition. By 2015, the National Education Association had formally discouraged the practice in member guidelines. Several large districts banned it outright. The wooden ruler that smacked the desk to keep time is now in a museum. A method that taught both penmanship and self-control was retired in a single generation. Most adults under 30 have never written the same sentence 100 times in a row. They have also, by every measure, lost the handwriting their grandparents took for granted. Number 18, soap in the mouth. The phrase that triggered it was almost always the same. A 4-letter word at the dinner table. The mother stood up, walked to the bathroom, and came back with a bar of Ivory or Lifebuoy. The child opened his mouth or got a hand on the back of his neck. One swipe across the tongue. The taste lasted hours. The lesson lasted decades. By the 1980s, child welfare guidelines in California and New York classified the practice as oral abuse. In 2009, an Ohio mother lost temporary custody after her ex-husband reported she had used hot sauce instead. The case was eventually dismissed. The custody fight cost her $17,000. Her grandmother had used soap on her own children without anyone ever calling it a crime. 3 of those children grew up to become teachers. None of them used soap on a single student in 40 combined years of teaching. The taste was the kind of thing you only needed once. Number 17, sent to bed without supper. In 1955, a child who refused to eat his vegetables was excused from the table and told to go upstairs. No dinner, no dessert, no snack before bed. Hunger was the teacher. By morning, the lesson had usually landed. Pediatric guidelines from the American Academy of Pediatrics now specifically warn against the practice. Withholding a meal as discipline is described in current policy statements as a form of nutritional neglect. Several states classify it under broader child welfare statutes. In 2014, a Wisconsin foster family was investigated after a placed child reported missing dinner as punishment. The investigation lasted 4 months. The family was cleared. The child was moved to a different home anyway. Most American grandmothers cannot believe the result. In 1955, the same correction would have been applied without comment. By 2014, it generated a paper trail thicker than most criminal files. The cupboard a hungry child once stared at is now legal evidence. Number 16, public scolding in front of the class. The teacher would call your name from the front of the room. Stand up. State what you did wrong. Apologize to the class. Sit down. The whole correction took 90 seconds. The shame was supposed to do the rest of the work. Generations of American children learned the difference between private conscience and public reputation in exactly this way. Modern guidance from state departments of education in at least 12 states now classifies public verbal correction as potentially humiliating discipline. Districts in Massachusetts and Illinois have issued specific bans. In 2019, a Pennsylvania teacher was placed on leave after parents complained their son was named during a behavior debrief. The investigation found no violation of policy. He was reassigned anyway. The boy he scolded had punched another student in the lunch line. That detail did not appear in the parent's complaint. Only the scolding made the file. The bruise healed within a week. Number 15. The wooden spoon. Open the kitchen drawer of any American grandmother born before 1950, and you would find one. Not for stirring, not for serving. The wooden spoon was the universal warning. It stayed visible. It was rarely used. Its presence was the deterrent. When it did come out, it landed on the back of a thigh or the seat of a pair of jeans. One swat, sometimes two, then back in the drawer until the next infraction. The Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act of 1974 set the federal framework that state agencies use to evaluate physical correction. Within 2 decades, a wooden spoon used on a child's leg could trigger a mandated report from any teacher or pediatrician who saw a mark. In 2018, a Tennessee mother was visited by a caseworker after her son mentioned a swat at his pediatrician's well check. The case file ran to 46 pages. The wooden spoon was entered as Exhibit 1, first pattern break. Here is where the list stops being about classroom rules and starts being about the home. The next 4 entries involve physical correction your own grandparents probably remember receiving. In several states today, every one of them is investigable. The household discipline tool became the household crime. Number 14. The switch from a tree. A father walks his son out to the yard, hands him a pocket knife, and tells him to pick a switch off the willow or the peach tree. The boy chooses. The father trims it. The correction lands on the calf or the back of the leg. 3 strikes, sometimes 5, then back inside for dinner. The choosing was part of the lesson. A switch was a green branch the size of a pencil, not a stick, not a club. By the late 1990s, child welfare departments in 19 states classified switching as physical abuse regardless of severity. In 2011, an Alabama father was charged with felony child cruelty after his daughter showed welts at school. He had used the same switch his own father used on him in 1971. His daughter was placed in foster care for 11 full months. Same switch. Number 13, the hairbrush spanking. Walk into any American bedroom in 1962, and the wooden hairbrush sat on the dresser. It brushed long hair after a bath. It smoothed pigtails before church. It also served, when needed, as the household's most reliable correction tool. The mother sat on the edge of the bed. The child went over her lap. The flat back of the brush did the work. 6 smacks on the seat of the pants, then a hug, then dinner. The Federal Bureau of Investigation began tracking child abuse statistics under the 1974 federal mandate. By the early 2000s, the hairbrush spanking appeared in court filings as a recognized indicator of physical abuse. In 2016, a New Jersey mother lost custody of her son after his school noticed marks. Her own mother had used the same hairbrush 40 years earlier. The brush was logged into evidence as Exhibit A. Number 12, kneeling on rice. The Catholic schools used dried beans. The Polish grandmothers used uncooked rice. The Italian fathers used corn kernels. The setup was the same. A child who lied or talked back was sent to the corner of the kitchen and told to kneel on the hard surface for 15 minutes. The pain was sharp, but left no mark. The lesson lasted longer than any spanking. By 2008, child psychology associations in 7 states had classified the practice as cruel disciplinary stress. In 2017, a Texas grandmother was reported to Child Protective Services after her granddaughter mentioned the punishment to a school counselor. The grandmother had grown up kneeling on rice in her own mother's kitchen in Mexico. The case did not result in charges. The grandmother spent 4 months under investigation. She has not babysat since. The granddaughter has not lied to a teacher in years. Number 11, pulling a child's ear. The Italian shopkeeper, the Polish butcher, the Irish nun. The grip was always the same. Thumb and forefinger on the cartilage, a firm twist. The child marched the length of the store, the church aisle, the school hallway. No bruise, no raised voice. Total compliance in under 30 seconds. The practice was so universal that comic strips drew it. Norman Rockwell painted it. Every American under 50 has seen the gesture from a grandparent at least once. In 2013, a New York City school principal was reprimanded after she pulled a fourth grader by the ear out of a fight. The reprimand became a suspension. The suspension became a resignation. By 2020, ear pulling was specifically named in 7 state Department of Education guidelines as physical abuse. The shopkeeper who once kept order on a Brooklyn block now risks a civil suit and a federal complaint. Second pattern break. We are halfway through the list now. The next 2 entries do not involve any physical contact at all. They involve something older and harder to undo. The deliberate use of community shame as a tool of correction. The marks they left were never visible to anyone. Number 10. The sign worn around the neck. A child caught lying in 1958 wore a hand-lettered sign for a school day. I am a liar. A child caught stealing wore a different one. I took what was not mine. The signs were homemade, written in marker on cardboard, and hung from yarn looped over the head. The shame was the entire correction. By the early 1990s, the practice had effectively vanished from American classrooms. In 2014, a Florida father went viral after posting a video of his 9-year-old daughter wearing a sign that read, "I lie about my homework." Child welfare contacted him within 48 hours. He was investigated for emotional abuse. The case was eventually closed without charges. His daughter graduated high school with honors. The father has not been allowed to visit her school since. He was placed on a list with no appeal and no end. Number 9. The walk home in disgrace. A child caught skipping class in 1964 was not driven home. The principal called the mother. The mother told the principal to send the boy walking. He left the school grounds at noon and walked the 4 miles past every neighbor's porch. By the time he reached his own front door, half the neighborhood knew. The mother was waiting on the porch. The walk took longer than any spanking and left a deeper mark. By 1995, school district policies in 26 states required adult escort for any minor leaving school grounds during the day. Liability concerns drove the change. In 2008, a Connecticut principal was sued for permitting an 11-year-old to walk home alone after a dress code violation. The settlement reached 6 figures. The mother who once stood on her own porch in 1964 would not recognize the courtroom or the final verdict. Number 8. The paddle in the principal's office. A wooden paddle hung on a hook behind the principal's desk in 1970. 23 states still permit corporal punishment in public schools today. 27 do not. The students who got paddled in the 1970s included the children of senators, surgeons, and Supreme Court clerks. The paddle did not check a parent's profession before it landed. The paddler kept a log. The parent received a phone call. In 2022, a Mississippi school district was sued after a 6th grader was paddled 3 times for talking back. The settlement was confidential. The paddle remained in the office. In 31 states, that same paddle now triggers a mandatory call to Child Protective Services within 24 hours. The same paddle that disciplined a future surgeon in 1970 is now evidence. The hook is still on the wall. Number 7. Any neighbor's right to discipline your child. In 1955, if your child was caught throwing rocks at the Klein family's window, Mr. Klein corrected him on the spot. Slap on the wrist, stern words. Marched home for a second round with his father. The community held discipline jointly. Every adult on the block had standing authority. By 1990, that standing was gone. Civil liability laws in 41 states established that any adult who physically corrects a non-related child can be charged with assault. In 2019, a New Hampshire grandfather was arrested after grabbing the arm of a teenager throwing eggs at his porch. The teenager refused to apologize. The grandfather spent the night in county lockup. Mr. Klein's house has new owners. They lock their doors during the day. Teenagers who once feared every porch now film themselves. Number 6. The public apology to the entire community. A child who broke a neighbor's window in 1960 did not pay restitution through a lawyer. He stood at the front door, hat in hand, said his name, said what he had done, and asked the family to forgive him. The neighbor often forgave on the spot. The child remembered the moment for life. Modern child psychology treats forced apology as coerced speech and a violation of a child's dignity. In 2018, a California court ruled that a school could not require a public apology as a disciplinary outcome. The ruling was upheld at the appellate level in 2020. The window the child broke in 1960 was replaced with one screw and one piece of glass. The court case to ban the apology cost the district nearly $200,000. Third pattern break. We are now at the foundations of the list. The last 5 entries are not customs. They are the basic instruments of parental authority itself. What follows is what the law has done to that authority over the past 50 years. Read what is left of it. Number 5. The belt. The leather belt was the last resort instrument of correction in millions of American homes from the 1920s through the 1980s. The father unbuckled it. The child knew the moment was serious. The strike landed on the seat of the pants, one time, sometimes 2. By 2015, all 50 states classified belt use on a child as physical abuse if any mark resulted. The same belt that taught a generation respect now lives in police evidence rooms. Number 4. The open hand slap to the face for talking back. A child who cursed at his mother in 1965 received an immediate slap. No discussion, no second warning, no appeal. The slap stung for an hour and corrected the behavior for life. By 2010, the practice was specifically named in 28 state child welfare codes as physical abuse. The slap that quietly ended a tantrum in 1965 now opens a custody hearing and a permanent state file in 2025. Number 3. Work as punishment. A child who broke curfew in 1958 spent Saturday morning chopping kindling, cleaning the basement, or scrubbing the front porch. The labor was the consequence. The labor was also the lesson in how a household runs. By 2015, child welfare guidelines in 19 states classified extended physical chores as a possible form of forced labor when used punitively. The basement that taught a generation work ethic is now a documented risk on a state form. Number 2. Confinement to the home for an extended period. A teenager in 1972 who lied to his mother was grounded for the summer. No friends, no telephone, no leaving the property except for school and church. The mother had absolute authority to decide the duration. By 2010, several state child welfare departments classified extended confinement as psychological abuse when it isolated a child from peer contact. The mother who once held that authority could no longer enforce it alone. Number 1. The full parental authority over a child's body, time, and choices. This is the foundation of every entry on this list. From 1620 to roughly 1974, an American parent held nearly unquestioned authority over the body, the schedule, and the discipline of their own child. Outside witnesses had no standing. The state had no standing. The community provided support, not oversight. The Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act of 1974 established the federal framework for state intervention. Within 50 years, dozens of routine corrections became reportable. Mandatory reporters multiplied. The unquestioned authority is gone. A modern American parent makes disciplined decisions inside a system of state interest. The parent did not change. The framework changed around them. The kitchen drawer that once held the wooden spoon is now empty for a specific reason. Here's the question. Look at this list one more time, very slowly. Pick the punishment that surprises you most. Drop the number in the comments. Tell me which one you would bring back. The Americans who use these tools are not relics. They are a mirror, and what they reflect back at us says less about what they kept and more about what we have lost. The corner, the drawer, empty for a reason.